the story of Jesus and the first Easter, as told by Elisabeth Jones. I wonder if you know the story about Jesus and the first Easter. It doesn't have an Easter bunny or any eggs in it, but it is still a wonderful story, so let me share it with you. Once, long ago, in a place a long way away from here, there lived a man whose name was Jesus. Now, Jesus was pretty much like you and me, except for 4 things. Let's count them as I tell the story. First, he told these amazingly wonderful stories about the world and about God who made the world and everything in it, from tiny ants to gigantic mountains to crazy volcanoes and the softness of a mama's kiss. Jesus could paint pictures in your imagination when he talked about all of the wonderful dreams that God has for the world. That God dreams of a world where love and kindness and compassion are more important than being rich or being bossy or having lots of stuff. The second amazing thing about Jesus was the way that he tried to make God's dream come true all the time in the things that he did for people. Jesus was really very good at helping sick people to be well, sad people to feel loved, and lonely people to feel included. Whenever Jesus shared his food, it turned into a wonderful party with so many leftovers. Now, the third really special thing about Jesus was that he told the truth all the time, even when the truth made other people angry. So he told the truth about powerful people who were mean bullies to ordinary people and made their lives miserable. And it made them mad at Jesus when he told them to be kind instead. And he also told the truth about the wideness of God's forgiving love, which God would give to anyone free all the time. And somehow that made mean people pretty mad at him too. Telling the truth got Jesus into trouble with powerful and fearful people all the time, but he wouldn't ever stop being God's best dreamer ever. Now, one day, at the time of the Passover Festival, Jesus wanted to go to the big temple in Jerusalem to sing and pray and to give thanks for all of God's loveliness and to invite people to trust that God's dream was not just long ago and far away, but was actually here and now. So Jesus borrowed a friend's donkey. I think her name might have been Shalom. Anyway, he sat on her back and rode her into the city. Now, when the ordinary people heard that Jesus was coming, they all ran out to see, and they turned it into this big festive parade where they put palm branches onto the ground or their coats or their shawls, and they waved and they clapped and they sang and they shouted, "Hosanna! Hosanna! God's special son is coming. Blessed is he. Hosanna! Be our saving one. Jesus! Hosanna!" And things like that. But while the ordinary people loved this Jesus parade, some of the powerful people didn't. They were so scared and cross with him that they sent soldiers to arrest him. They found him sitting under the olive trees in a garden, praying to God. There was a trial in a court where they decided that he was guilty of trying to become a king and take away their power, which wasn't true, because all he wanted was for everyone to feel like they belonged in God's holy company. Now, in those days, punishment could be really cruel, and Jesus was punished so that his body ached and hurt and bled, and they executed him by hanging him on a cross until his body died. It is a horrible way to kill someone. His friends were terrified, and they hid themselves for fear that that might happen to them too. But most of all, they were sad, just terribly sad. So as the darkness of the night ended that terrible Friday when Jesus was killed, some of those friends crept out of their hiding places to gather his poor body and wrap it in cloth and then to bury it in a burial cave that belonged to a man called Joseph. Now the soldiers who saw all of this, they rolled this massive stone up against the entrance to the tomb, and then they stood guard because, well, maybe because the powerful people were still scared of all this loveliness even after Jesus was dead. Or maybe it was because they thought that some people might steal his dead body. You know, fearful people do the oddest things when they're frightened. For a whole day, the city was quiet as the people kept their Sabbath day rest at home. And then, on Sunday morning, now we're getting to the fourth special thing about Jesus. Before it was even light, some of the women who believed all that Jesus had taught them about God's dream, they went to the tomb to complete the burial rituals properly. So they brought with them some special spices like myrrh and frankincense and fresh linens. As they reached the burial cave, something wasn't right. That huge stone that had covered the entrance, well, it was all rolled away. And inside the tomb, Jesus' body, well, it wasn't there. Depending on who tells the story, some say there were angels or somebody in white and glowing with light who told these terrified women, "Don't be afraid. Jesus isn't here. He's not here because he's alive, not dead. And what's more, he's already gone ahead of you all the way back to Galilee where his story all began." Now, depending on who tells the story, the women ran away and told no one. Others say that they told the friends of Jesus, who just couldn't believe their ears, not at first. But you know what? I think they did tell. Because this really, really good news is just not for keeping secret, is it? So over the coming days, friends of Jesus saw him again and again in all sorts of places. I could tell you that story too another time perhaps. But what I can tell you is that everyone who saw him could feel God's special peace fill their sad hearts. And they realized that this fourth special thing about Jesus is true. God's amazingly lovely dream about love and about kindness and about life lasting longer than sadness and death, it's true. They realized that God's love was as vast and free as the air we breathe, and that God's longing to heal and mend broken hearts or lives or families and the world is always true. And so these friends realized as they met Jesus by the lakeshore, cooking fish, praying and healing, laughing and loving, that what God has in store for every single one of us after we die is going to be filled with such new life. It will be even more beautiful than we can even imagine. And that, my best beloveds, is why we tell this story. And it's why we paint our world with all the colors of new life, of gold and white, and why we fill our gardens with flowers. And it's why we shout hallelujah every time we open an empty eggshell. And it's why we celebrate God's gift of life every spring with bunnies and chocolate. And it's also why when somebody dies, we can trust that all that was good and beautiful about them is alive again with God. we do these things to share with the world the story of Jesus and the dream of God for every single one of us and for our world. Happy Easter. Hallelujah.